She answered the wrong call, and now the most dangerous mafia boss is at her door. Little Dove, their daughter.
The rain hammered against the tall windows of the old estate house like it was trying to break in. Elena stood in the foyer, clutching her 5-year-old daughter Sophia's hand so tightly the little girl whimpered. She didn't loosen her grip. Not tonight. The double doors at the far end of the hall opened without a sound. He stepped through taller than she remembered, broader in the shoulders, suit black as the night outside. Luca Moretti, the man who had once held her like she was made of glass, then vanished without a word 7 years ago. The man who had left her pregnant, alone and terrified. He stopped 10 feet away. His eyes, those same storm-gray eyes, found hers first, then dropped to the child hiding half behind Elena's leg. Sophia peeked out, curious despite the fear rolling off her mother in waves. Mama, who's that man? Luca's jaw tightened. He looked like someone had just driven a blade between his ribs. Elena lifted her chin. He's the reason we're here, baby. The reason we don't have a choice anymore. Luca took 1 step closer. His voice came out low, rough, like gravel under boots. You kept her from me. I kept her safe from you, Elena answered. The words tasted like blood. There's a difference. He glanced around the cavernous room at the marble floors, the crystal chandelier that cost more than most people's houses, the armed men standing discreetly in the shadows. This was his world now. The Moretti family had swallowed half the city while she was raising their daughter on tips and second-hand clothes. You disappeared, she said quietly. No note. No call. Nothing. I waited 3 months before I stopped checking the door every night. Then I stopped hoping. Luca's hands flexed at his sides. I didn't have a choice either. That's what they all say. She gave a small, bitter laugh that didn't reach her eyes. The great Luca Moretti, untouchable. You always have a choice. He looked at Sophia again. The little girl was staring up at him now, unafraid in that way only children can be. She had his eyes, same shape, same stormy gray. The resemblance hit him like a fist. Elena felt the shift in the air. She stepped in front of her daughter instinctively. Luca raised both palms slowly, the universal sign of surrender. I'm not here to hurt either of you. Then why are we here? Elena's voice cracked on the last word. Why the summons? Why the cars that followed us for 3 days? Why the lawyer who showed up at my apartment with papers saying I had 48 hours to appear or face consequences? Luca exhaled through his nose. Because someone found out about her. Someone who wants to use her to get to me. Elena's stomach dropped. Who? Doesn't matter. They're handled. He said it so flatly it chilled her more than any threat could have. But the family, the council, they know now too. They know I have an heir. They know she's legitimate, and they know the only way to protect the bloodline is marriage. Elena finished for him. The word tasted like ash. Luca didn't flinch. Tomorrow, in the chapel on the east wing, private, no press. No guests. She laughed again, this time it sounded broken. You think you can just decide that, after 7 years? I'm not asking. Her eyes burned. Then what are you doing? He took another step, close enough now that she could smell the rain on his coat, the faint cedar of his cologne, the same one he'd worn the night he kissed her goodbye and never came back. I'm fixing what I broke, he said quietly. I'm keeping you both alive. Sophia tugged Elena's sleeve. Mama, is he gonna hurt us? Elena knelt, cupped her daughter's face. No, sweetheart. He's not gonna hurt us. She looked up at Luca over Sophia's dark curls. Because if he tries, I'll burn this entire empire to the ground before I let him touch a hair on her head. Luca's gaze softened just for a second. Then the mask slipped back into place. Get some rest, he said. The guest wing is prepared. Clothes, food, anything you need. Elena stood slowly. I don't need anything from you. You will, he answered. Sooner than you think. He turned to leave, then paused at the doorway. Without looking back, he spoke so softly only Elena could hear. I never stopped loving you, little dove. The nickname sliced through her like glass. She didn't answer. She just held Sophia tighter and watched him disappear down the corridor, the echo of his footsteps fading into the storm. That night, Alina didn't sleep. She sat on the edge of the four-poster bed in the guest suite, watching Sophia breathe in small, even puffs under the heavy duvet. The room smelled of lavender and old money. Everything in it cost more than Alina had earned in the last 5 years. She kept replaying his face, the way his eyes had gone soft when they landed on Sophia, the way his voice had cracked, just barely, on the word heir he hadn't known. All these years she'd hated him for abandoning them, and he hadn't even known there was an US. Part of her wanted to keep hating him. It was easier, safer, but another part, the part that still remembered how his hand had felt in hers when they were 19, and stupid and in love, kept whispering that maybe hate wasn't the only thing left between them. She pressed her palm to her chest, trying to quiet the ache. Tomorrow she would marry the man who had once promised her forever and then disappeared. Tomorrow she would stand in front of a priest and say vows she didn't mean. Tomorrow she would become Alina Moretti again, and she had no idea whether that would save her daughter or destroy them both. The morning came too soon, gray light slipping through heavy curtains like an unwelcome guest. Alina woke with Sophia curled against her side, small fingers tangled in the silk of her nightgown. The child's breathing was soft, trusting. Alina envied that trust. She hadn't felt it in years. A soft knock at the door made her tense. A woman in her 50s entered, silver hair pinned neatly, navy dress crisp as a uniform. She carried a tray with coffee, fresh fruit, and pastries that looked too delicate to eat. "Mr. Moretti thought you might want breakfast before the preparations," the woman said. Her voice was kind, careful. "I'm Maria. I've been with the family since Luca was a boy." Alina sat up slowly, pulling the sheet higher. "Thank you, Maria, but we're not hungry." Maria set the tray on the low table anyway. She glanced at Sophia, still asleep, then back at Alina. "He asked me to tell you the chapel is ready, 11 o'clock. The dress is in the wardrobe. Shoes, everything." Alina's throat tightened. He thought of everything, didn't he? Maria hesitated. "He's been different since last night, quiet. I haven't seen him like this in years." Alina didn't respond. She watched Maria leave, the door closing with a soft click that felt final. Sophia stirred, rubbing her eyes. "Mama is today, the wedding day." Alina forced a smile. "Yes, sweetheart. Is it like in the stories, with flowers and cake?" Alina brushed a curl from her daughter's forehead. "Not exactly. But there will be flowers, and you'll get to wear the pretty dress Maria brought for you." Sophia's face lit up. "Can I see it?" They opened the wardrobe together. Hanging, there was a child-sized ivory dress, with tiny embroidered roses along the hem, simple, elegant, heartbreakingly beautiful. Next to it hung Alina's gown, not white, ivory silk, off the shoulder, fitted through the bodice, then flowing into a soft train. No lace, no beads. Just clean lines and quiet luxury, the kind of dress that whispered money and power instead of shouting it. Alina touched the fabric. It felt cool against her fingertips. She remembered the last time she'd worn anything close to this, Luca's senior prom, borrowed from a cousin, laughing in the back of his beat-up Chevy until dawn. She closed the wardrobe. "We need to get ready," she said. The hours blurred. Hair, makeup, Sophia twirling in her dress, giggling when the skirt flared. Alina let strangers touch her stylists, a quiet woman who pinned her hair into loose waves, another who brushed subtle shadow across her lids. She moved through it like someone else's life. At 10:45, Maria returned. "It's time." Alina took Sophia's hand. They walked the long corridor in silence. Sophia skipped a little, excited by the adventure. Alina felt every step like walking toward a guillotine. The chapel doors were open. Candles flickered along the stone walls. No organ, no guests. Just the priest in black vestments, a single violinist in the corner, and Luca. He stood at the altar, back straight, hands clasped behind him. Dark suit, white shirt, no tie, the top button undone. He looked like he hadn't slept either. When he turned, his eyes found Alina first, then Sophia. Something raw crossed his face. Regret, hunger, both. Alina lifted her chin. She would not look away. The priest began. Latin words Alina barely heard. She repeated what was asked of her in a voice that didn't shake. Luca's answers were low, steady. When it came time for the rings, he took her left hand. His fingers were warm, calloused in places she didn't remember. He slid the band onto her finger, platinum, simple, heavy, with a single diamond that caught the candlelight like a tear. Then he lifted her hand to his lips. Not a kiss, just a brush, a promise, or a plea. I do, he said again, softer this time. The priest pronounced them husband and wife. No applause, no rice, just silence and the faint scent of incense. Luca turned to Sophia, who had been standing quietly beside Maria. He knelt so they were eye level. Hello, little one, he said. Sophia studied him. Are you my daddy? The question hung in the air like smoke. Luca swallowed. Yes. Sophia tilted her head. You were gone a long time. I know. His voice cracked. I'm sorry. Sophia considered that. Then she stepped forward and wrapped her small arms around his neck. Luca froze. Then, slowly, his arms came around her. He buried his face in her hair. His shoulders shook once, only before he pulled back, eyes wet but controlled. Elena watched it all. Her heart felt too big for her chest. Luca stood. He offered Elena his arm. She took it. They walked out of the chapel together, husband, wife, daughter. A family forged in silence and necessity. Outside, the rain had stopped. Sunlight broke through the clouds in thin, hesitant rays. Luca paused on the stone steps. He looked down at Elena. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For not running. For not fighting in front of her. Elena met his gaze. I'm not doing this for you. I know. He glanced at Sophia, who was chasing a butterfly across the lawn. But you're doing it. That's enough for now. He reached out, tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. His thumb lingered against her cheek. I won't ask for forgiveness today, he murmured. I don't deserve it, but I will earn it. Every day, until you believe I'm worth keeping. Elena didn't answer. She just watched Sophia laugh in the sunlight, innocent and bright, and for the first time in 7 years the ache in her chest felt less like a wound and more like something that might one day heal. But that night, after Sophia was asleep in the room next to theirs, Luca stood at the window of the master suite, staring into the dark. Elena sat on the edge of the bed, still in her dress, shoes kicked off. He spoke without turning. There's a room prepared for you, down the hall, or you can stay here. Your choice. She looked at the wide bed, the space beside him that had once felt like home. I'll stay, she said, but not because I want to. He nodded. I understand. She stood, walked to the window beside him. They didn't touch. They just stood side by side, watching the night. I dreamed about this, he said after a long silence. Coming home, finding you, finding her. And now I have. He turned to her. But I also have 7 years of ghosts to bury. Elena looked up at him. Then start burying them. He reached for her hand. She let him take it. Neither of them moved after that. They just stood there, 2 people bound by vows and blood, and a little girl, sleeping down the hall. And in the quiet, something fragile began to stir again, something that looked a lot like hope. The first week passed in a strange, suspended rhythm. Mornings began with Sophia's laughter echoing down the long hallways, small footsteps running toward the kitchen where Maria had already set out fresh pancakes and sliced strawberries. Elena watched from the doorway, arms crossed, as if standing guard. Luca was always there first, sleeves rolled to his elbows, pouring orange juice into a plastic cup, with the careful focus of a man diffusing a bomb. He didn't push, didn't demand conversation. He simply existed in the same space as them, quiet and steady, like a shadow that had finally learned to wait. Sophia took to him fastest. On the 3rd morning, she climbed onto the stool beside him at the island. Countern asked, without preamble, do you know how to make braids? Luca looked down at her dark curls, then at his own large hands. I can try. He failed spectacularly. The braid unraveled before he finished the 2nd twist. Sophia giggled so hard she nearly fell off the stool. Elena, leaning against the doorframe, felt something loosen in her chest, something she hadn't realized was knotted. Luca caught her eye over Sophia's head. He didn't smile. He just held the look a second longer than necessary, then went back to attempting the braid. By the end of the week, Sophia had decided he was allowed to read her bedtime stories. She chose the same book every night, The Velveteen Rabbit, and insisted he do the voices. Luca's rabbit voice came out surprisingly gentle, low, and a little rough around the edges, like velvet dragged over stone. Elena listened from the hallway, back pressed to the wall, arms wrapped around herself. She told herself she was only making sure he didn't say anything he shouldn't. She told herself a lot of lies that week. Luca never once tried to touch her. Not a hand on her arm. Not a brush of fingers when passing a plate. He kept a careful distance, as though he understood that any sudden movement might make her bolt. But the nights were harder. They still shared the master bedroom, her choice, though she slept on the far side of the enormous bed, back turned, pillow hugged to her chest like armor. Luca slept on his back, hands folded over his stomach, staring at the ceiling until exhaustion pulled him under. Sometimes she heard him exhale slowly, like a man releasing a breath he'd held for years. One night she woke to the sound of him moving. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. Moonlight cut sharp lines across his shoulders. She didn't speak at first, just watched. After a long minute he whispered, "I keep seeing the day I left." Elena stayed still. "You don't have to tell me. I know." He dragged a hand over his face. "But you deserve to know why." Silence stretched thin between them. "My father was dying," he said finally, "not the slow kind. The kind where every breath costs him something. The family was fracturing, cousins circling like vultures, old enemies smelling blood. He called me into his study at 3 in the morning and said if I did take the reins that night, everything we'd built would burn. And I'd lose you in the crossfire anyway." Elena closed her eyes. "So you chose the family. I chose to keep you safe by staying away." His voice cracked on the last word. "I thought if I disappeared, if I became the thing they feared instead of the boy who loved you, they'd leave you alone. I thought distance was protection." She sat up slowly, pulling the sheet around her shoulders. "And when you realized I was pregnant?" "I didn't." He looked at her then, eyes raw. "Not until the night you walked through those doors with her. I spent 7 years thinking you'd moved on. Found someone better. Someone who didn't come home with blood on his shoes." Elena felt the old anger rise, familiar and hot. "I waited for you, every day for months. I checked the mailbox like it might hold a miracle. I told her daughter her father was away, working, because I couldn't bear to tell her he'd chosen something else over us." Luca's shoulders bowed. "I know." "You don't know," she said quietly. "You can't know what it feels like to wake up every morning and choose not to hate the only man you ever loved. Because hate would have been easier." He turned fully toward her then. Moonlight caught the sheen in his eyes. "I'm not asking you to forgive me tonight, or tomorrow, or next year. I'm just asking you to let me stay in the same room as her. Let me learn her favorite color. Let me hear her laugh when she thinks I'm not listening. Let me be whatever small piece of a father I can still become." Elena studied his face, the lines that hadn't been there 7 years ago, the faint scar above his left eyebrow she didn't remember. Time had marked him too. She reached out, hesitant, and touched the back of his hand where it rested on the mattress. Just fingertips. Nothing more. He didn't move, didn't breathe. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again," she whispered. "But I won't take her from you, not anymore." His fingers turned slowly, palm up, catching hers. He held on like a man drowning. They stayed like that, until the moon slid behind clouds, and the room darkened. The next morning Sophia burst into the kitchen, waving a drawing 3 stick figures under a crooked sun. "Look, it's us." Elena knelt. There she was, tall with long hair, Sophia in the middle, smiling, and Luca, big square shoulders, a tiny heart drawn over his chest. Luca stared at the paper like it was scripture. Sophia tugged his sleeve. "You have to put it on the fridge." He looked at Elena for permission. She nodded once. He lifted Sophia onto his hip, careful, like she was glass, and carried her to the stainless steel fridge. He found a magnet shaped like a star and pressed the drawing flat. Sophia beamed. Elena watched them, heart thudding unevenly. Later that afternoon, while Sophia napped, Luca found Elena in the library. She was curled in an armchair with an old book she wasn't really reading. He didn't sit, just leaned against the doorframe. "There's a threat," he said quietly. "Not gone. Not yet." One of the old council members, Vincenzo's uncle. "He thinks Sofia makes me weak," he's whispering to the others. Elena's fingers tightened on the book. "What does that mean?" "It means I need to show them she makes me stronger." He met her eyes. "And that you're not just a liability. You're the only reason I'm still breathing." She set the book aside. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to come to dinner tomorrow night. The family gathering. Bring Sofia. Let them see us together. Let them see we're not broken." Elena laughed once, short and sharp. "You want me to play happy wife?" "I want them to know hurting you would be suicide." His voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "And I want them to see what I see when I look at you." She stood slowly. "And what's that?" He stepped closer, close enough she could feel the heat off him. "Home," he said. The word landed soft between them. Elena searched his face for the lie, found only truth. She exhaled. "One dinner. That's all I'm promising." He nodded once, but as he turned to leave, she caught his wrist. "Luca." He stopped. "If anyone tries to touch her," she said, voice low and lethal, "I'll kill them myself. And then I'll come for you." His mouth curved just the ghost of a smile. "I know." He left her standing there, heart racing, wondering when hate had started feeling so much like something else. That night, when the house was quiet, Elena slipped into Sofia's room. The little girl was asleep, thumb near her mouth, drawing clutched in her other hand. Elena sat on the edge of the bed and smoothed the curls from her daughter's forehead. "I'm scared," she whispered to the sleeping child, "but I think maybe he's scared too." Outside the window, the moon hung low and full, and somewhere down the hall, Luca stood at his own window staring at the same moon, whispering to the dark, "Please don't let me lose them again." The dinner was held in the long formal dining room, the one Elena had only glimpsed on her first night. Crystal chandelier overhead, heavy damask curtains drawn against the evening chill, a table long enough to seat 20 but set for 12. Candles flickered in silver holders. The air smelled of rosemary, roasted lamb, and old secrets. Elena wore the same ivory dress from the wedding, simple, elegant, a quiet armor. Sofia was in pale pink, ribbons in her hair, clutching Elena's hand as they entered. The chatter died the moment they crossed the threshold. 12 pairs of eyes turned. Uncles, cousins, a few trusted lieutenants, faces carved from the same hard stone as Luca's. They rose out of respect, but the respect felt edged. Luca stood at the head of the table. He wore black, no tie again, sleeves rolled just enough to show the face. Scars on his forearms, reminders of nights Elena had never asked about. He came around the table, slow and deliberate, and offered Sofia his hand. "Come sit by me, Piccolina," he said softly. Sofia glanced up at Elena. Elena nodded once. Sofia slipped her small hand into Luca's larger one and let him lead her to the chair beside his. Elena took the seat on his other side. The placement wasn't accidental. She was flanked by him and their daughter, a living statement. The meal began in near silence. Silverware against porcelain, wine poured. Elena kept her movements measured, her gaze forward. She felt every stare like fingers on her skin. Old Vincenzo's uncle Giovanni was the first to speak. Gray hair slicked back, gold pinky ring catching the candlelight. He leaned forward, elbows on the table like he owned it. "So," he said, voice oily, "the prodigal wife returns," and, with a ready-made air, convenient timing. Luca's fork paused halfway to his mouth. He set it down without sound. "Careful, Giovanni," he said. The words were calm, too calm. Giovanni smiled, teeth too white. "Just observing. The family has rules about legitimacy. Blood matters. But so does loyalty. We all remember how you walked away from certain obligations 7 years ago." Elena's hand tightened on her napkin under the table. Sofia looked between them, confused. Luca reached over and tucked a stray curl behind Sofia's ear. "Eat your pasta, sweetheart. It's getting cold." Sofia nodded and twirled spaghetti around her fork with fierce concentration. Elena met Giovanni's gaze across the table. If you have something to say to me, say it. Don't hide behind riddles. Giovanni's smile widened. Bold. I like that. But boldness doesn't change facts. You disappeared. Now you reappear with a child no one knew about. Some might call that suspicious. Luca's chair scraped back an inch. Enough. The room stilled. Luca leaned forward, forearms on the table, voice low but carrying to every corner. She didn't disappear. I did. I left her to protect her from exactly this men like you who think children are pawns. You want to question legitimacy? Question mine. But you do not question hers, or Elena's place at this table. Giovanni opened his mouth. Luca cut him off. The next word out of you about my wife or my daughter will be your last at this table. Am I clear? Giovanni's smile faltered. He sat back. The others shifted uncomfortably. Elena felt heat rise in her cheeks, not embarrassment. Something fiercer. Pride? Relief? She didn't know. Luca turned to her then, voice softer. You okay? She nodded once. I'm fine. He studied her a moment longer, then picked up his fork again. The rest of the meal passed in strained civility. Conversation turned to business shipments, territories. Nothing Elena cared to hear. She focused on Sophia, cutting her lamb into tiny pieces, wiping sauce from her chin. Every so often Luca's knee brushed hers under the table. Accidental. Or not. She didn't pull away. After dessert tiramisu Sophia devoured with chocolate-smeared glee, Luca excused them. He carried Sophia upstairs himself, her head resting on his shoulder, small arms looped around his neck. Elena followed, heels clicking on marble. In the nursery, he laid Sophia down gently. She was already half asleep, murmuring about the butterfly she'd chased earlier. Luca pulled the blanket up to her chin, then bent and pressed a kiss to her forehead, so light Elena almost missed it. Sleep well, little dove, he whispered. Elena's breath caught. The nickname. He'd used it on Sophia. He straightened, caught her watching. No apology in his eyes. Just quiet certainty. They walked back to their room in silence. The door closed behind them with a soft click. Elena kicked off her shoes, paced to the window. You called her little dove. Luca loosened his collar. It slipped out. It's what you used to call me. I know. She turned. Why her? Because she's part of you. He stepped closer, stopping when she tensed. And because she feels like the second chance I never thought I'd get. Elena wrapped her arms around herself. You can't just claim that. Not after everything. I'm not claiming. I'm asking. His voice dropped. Let me be soft with her. Let me be the father she deserves. Even if you never let me be anything more to you. She looked at him, really looked. The man who'd once laughed with her until dawn, who'd held her like she was the only thing keeping him grounded. The man who'd walked away. The man who was trying in halting, painful steps to walk back. I saw you tonight, she said quietly. The way you stood between us and them. The way you looked at Giovanni like you'd burn the world down if he touched her. I would. I believe you. He exhaled, shoulders dropping a fraction. She took one step toward him, then another, until she was close enough to see the pulse at the base of his throat. I'm still angry, she whispered. I might always be angry. I know, but I'm also tired of being angry alone. Luca didn't move, didn't reach. Elena lifted her hand slowly, fingertips brushing the open collar of his shirt. His breath hitched. She pressed her palm flat against his chest, over his heart. It hammered under her touch. I don't know what this is yet, she said. But I'm not running tonight. He covered her hand with his. Warm, steady. Then stay, he murmured. Just stay. They did. Tea kiss. Not yet. They just stood there, foreheads almost touching, breathing the same air, hearts beating too fast and too loud. Outside, the wind rattled the windows. Inside, something cracked, open, small, tentative, terrifyingly alive. Later, when they lay in the dark, inches apart on the wide bed, Elena whispered into the silence, if you leave again, I won't. Swear it. I swear on her. On you. On every breath I have left. Elena closed her eyes. For the first time in 7 years, Sleep came without nightmares, but in the morning a black envelope waited on the breakfast tray. No name. Just a single red seal. Luca opened it while Elena watched, heart in her throat. Inside, a single photograph, Sophia playing in the garden yesterday, taken from outside the gates. On the back, 3 words in black ink, "We see her." Luca's face went stone. Elena reached for his hand. He squeezed once hard. "They won't touch her," he said. But his eyes said something else. They said war. The black envelope sat on the kitchen island like a coiled snake. Luca had moved it there after breakfast, away from Sophia's curious eyes. Elena stared at it while Maria cleared plates, the photograph tucked back inside. The image was grainy but unmistakable. Sophia in her yellow raincoat, laughing as she chased bubbles across the lawn. Someone had stood beyond the iron gates with a long lens. Someone had watched. Luca paced the length of the room, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and clipped. Double the perimeter, no one in or out without my say. And find out who took the shot. I want a name by tonight. He ended the call, set the phone down too carefully. When he turned, his face was calm, too calm. The mask he wore for the world. Elena waited until Maria left the room. "How long have they been watching?" she asked. "Not long, a week, maybe 2. He rubbed the back of his neck. "I thought we'd handled the loose ends after the council meeting." "Apparently not." She crossed her arms. "You thought. But you didn't tell me. I didn't want to scare you. I'm not scared." Her voice stayed even. "I'm furious. You brought us here to protect us, and now we're targets because of you." Luca flinched just a flicker, but she saw it. "I know," he said. "And I'll fix it." "How?" "By killing more people. By locking us in this house like prisoners." He stepped closer. "By ending it before it touches her." Elena looked toward the hallway where Sophia's voice floated in, singing off-key to one of Maria's old records. The sound twisted something inside her. "I want to leave," she said quietly. "Take her somewhere they can't find us." Luca's eyes darkened. "You think I haven't considered that? Running? Starting over? I've got accounts in 3 countries, passports ready, but they'd find us. They always do. The only way to stop this is to make them afraid to try." She studied him. "And how do you do that?" "By showing them what happens when you threaten what's mine." He said it without heat, without bravado, just fact. Elena felt cold settle in her bones. "I won't let you turn into the monster they expect. I already am the monster." He gave a small, bitter smile. "I just hide it better around you two." She reached out before she could stop herself, fingers curling into his shirt front. "Then don't hide it from me. Tell me the truth. All of it." Luca covered her hand with his. "Tonight, after she's asleep, I'll tell you everything." Sophia burst into the kitchen then, clutching a handful of daisies she'd picked from the garden. "Look, for the table." Elena let go of Luca's shirt and knelt. "They're beautiful, baby. Let's put them in water." While Sophia arranged the flowers in a small vase, Luca crouched beside them. He took one daisy, twirled it between his fingers, then tucked it behind Sophia's ear. "For my favorite girl," he said. Sophia beamed. "Mama, can Daddy come to the park with us today?" Elena froze. "Daddy." The word had slipped out naturally, like it had been waiting. Luca looked at Elena, waiting. She swallowed. "Yes, but we stay inside the gates. No park outside." Sophia pouted but nodded. They spent the afternoon in the walled garden behind the house. Sophia ran ahead, chasing a butterfly, then back to tug Luca's hand toward the swing set he'd had installed the week before. Elena sat on a stone bench, watching them. Luca pushed Sophia gently, her laughter rising clear and bright. Every so often he glanced at Elena, checking, reassuring. When Sophia grew tired, she climbed onto Luca's lap on the bench beside Elena. She nestled against his chest, eyes heavy. "She's exhausted," Elena murmured. Luca stroked Sophia's hair. "She's perfect." Elena watched his face soften in a way she hadn't seen since they were teenager stealing moments in his old car. The hardness that had settled over him these last days seemed to melt away when Sophia was near. "She asked me yesterday if you were staying forever," Elena said quietly. "What did you tell her?" I said I didn't know. She met his eyes. But I want her to have you, even if it terrifies me. Luca shifted Sophia, so she lay more comfortably against him. It terrifies me too. They sat in silence after that, the late afternoon sun slanting golden through the trees. Sophia's breathing evened into sleep. Luca spoke first, voice barely above a whisper. I never wanted this life for her. I wanted her to have normal school plays, birthday parties. A father who came home smelling like coffee, not gun oil. Elena reached over, brushed her fingers along Sophia's cheek, then let them rest on Luca's knee. She has that now. Parts of it, not enough. More than I ever thought she'd get. He turned his hand palm up, catching hers. Their fingers laced slowly, naturally, like muscle memory. I love her, he said. Simple. Raw. And I love you. I never stopped. Even when I told myself I had to. Elena's throat tightened. I know. He looked at her, then really looked. Do you? She nodded. I hated you for leaving. But I never stopped loving the boy who promised me stars. I just buried him under 7 years of hurt. Luca lifted their joined hands, pressed a kiss to her knuckles. Soft. Reverent. I'll spend the rest of my life digging him out, he murmured. Sophia stirred, mumbling something about ice cream. Luca smiled against Elena's skin. Later, he told the sleeping child. Ice cream later. Elena leaned her head against his shoulder. Just for a moment, just to feel the warmth of him, the steady rise and fall of his breathing. The sun dipped lower, shadows lengthened across the lawn. When Maria came to carry Sophia inside for a nap, Luca and Elena stayed on the bench. The garden grew quiet except for the rustle of leaves. Luca spoke into the stillness. Tonight, after dinner, I'll show you the files. The threats, the names, everything, no more secrets, Elena nodded. And then we decide together what happens next. She turned her face into his neck, breathed him in cedar. Rain, home. Okay, she whispered. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulled her closer. They sat like that until the first stars appeared, faint against the deepening blue. But as they walked back toward the house, hand in hand, Elena glanced over her shoulder at the high stone wall that surrounded them. Somewhere beyond it, someone was still watching, and the black envelope on the kitchen island felt heavier than ever. The house felt heavier that evening, as if the walls themselves were listening. Dinner was quiet. Sophia chattered about the butterfly she'd named Sparkle, and how it had landed on Luca's shoulder like he was a flower. Luca listened with the kind of focused attention that made Elena's throat ache. He answered every question seriously, never brushing her off with a vague maybe later. When Sophia yawned mid-sentence, he carried her upstairs without being asked, humming the same lullaby Elena used to sing when Sophia was a baby. Elena waited in the library. She'd lit only one lamp, the soft glow pooling on the leather armchair where she sat with her knees drawn up. The black envelope lay unopened on the low table in front of her. She hadn't touched it since Luca placed it there. He came in without knocking, closing the door softly behind him. He'd changed into a plain gray sweater and dark jeans clothes that made him look less like the untouchable Dawn and more like the boy she'd once known. He paused when he saw her, then crossed to the fireplace and crouched to light it. The kindling caught quickly. Flames licked upward, throwing warm shadows across his face. He didn't speak until the fire was steady. Then he sat on the ottoman across from her, close enough that their knees almost touched. Everything's in here, he said, nodding toward a slim black folder he'd brought with him. Threats, names, timelines, photos. I've been tracking it since the day after you arrived. Elena reached for the folder but didn't open it yet. Start from the beginning. Luca exhaled slowly. About 6 months ago, Giovanni started pushing the council harder. He's been saying the family needs stability, meaning he wants control. He's got support from 2 of the older capos who think I'm too soft because I won't expand into the new territories the way my father did. They see an heir as leverage. If they can get to Sophia, they can get to me. Force me out. Or worse. Elena's fingers tightened on the folder and the photograph. Proof they can reach her. A warning shot. They want me to step aside quietly, marry you off to one of their sons. Legitimize the child under their name. Keep the bloodline but shift the power. A bitter laugh escaped her. They think I'd let that happen. They think you're a weakness I'll protect at any cost. He met her eyes. They're not wrong. She opened the folder. The first page was a surveillance still, a man in a dark coat standing beyond the estate gates, camera raised. Below it, a name, Marco Rossi, and a list of known associates. The next pages were worse. Intercepted messages, grainy shots of Sophia at different angles around the property, even one of Elena pushing her on the swing. Elena closed the folder with deliberate calm. You've known for weeks. I've known since before the wedding, he admitted. I sped everything up because of it. The marriage makes her untouchable under our laws. Hurting her now would be an act of war against the entire family, not just me. And if they don't care about your laws, then we end them. His voice was flat, permanently. Elena stood. She walked to the window, arms wrapped around herself. Outside, the garden lights glowed faintly along the paths. Somewhere in the dark, men with guns patrolled the perimeter. Men who answered to Luca. I didn't sign up for this, she said quietly. I wanted her to have piano lessons and sleepovers, not bodyguards and coded threats. Luca rose and came up behind her, not touching, just close enough she could feel his warmth at her back. I know, he murmured, and I hate that I brought it to your door. But I can't undo the past. I can only make sure the future doesn't take her from us. Us. The word landed soft between them. Elena turned slowly. His face was inches from hers, shadowed, tired, fiercely determined. She lifted her hand, traced the line of his jaw with her fingertips. He closed his eyes at the touch, like it hurt and healed at the same time. I'm not asking you to become someone else, she whispered. I'm asking you to let me stand beside you, not behind you. If this is our life now, then I want to know every piece of it. No more secrets. No more deciding for me. Luca opened his eyes. You want in? I want to protect her too. Her voice steadied. And if that means learning how to protect us both, then teach me. He studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded once. Tomorrow, he said. I'll take you to the range, show you how to hold a gun, how to read a room, how to spot a tail, everything. Elena's stomach twisted, but she didn't flinch. And tonight, he reached up, cupped her face gently with both hands. His thumbs brushed her cheekbones. Tonight I just want to hold you. If you'll let me. She searched his eyes. Found only honesty there, no games, no masks. She stepped into him. His arms came around her slowly, carefully, like he was afraid she'd vanish. She pressed her cheek to his chest, listened to the steady thud of his heart. It was faster than it should have been. They stood like that for what felt like hours. The fire crackled. The house settled around them. Eventually he led her to the sofa. They sank down together, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist. No words, just breathing. Just the quiet comfort of bodies remembering each other. She fell asleep first, lulled by the rise and fall of his chest. When she woke, the fire had burned low. Luca was still awake, staring into the embers, one hand absently stroking her hair. She shifted, looked up at him. You didn't sleep. Couldn't. His voice was rough. Kept thinking if I'd come back sooner, if I'd found you before they did. Elena lifted her hand, pressed a finger to his lips. Stop. He caught her wrist gently, kissed the inside of it. I'm sorry, Elena. For all of it. She sat up, straddled his lap, so they were face to face. His hands settled on her hips, tentative, reverent. I forgive you, she said softly. Not because it's easy, because I'm choosing it, because Sophia deserves a father who stays. And because I still love you, even the broken parts. Luca's breath shuddered out. His eyes glistened. He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met soft at first, testing, then deeper, hungrier. Years of grief and longing poured into one kiss. His hand slid up her back, pulling her closer. She threaded her fingers through his hair, anchoring herself to him. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, foreheads pressed together, he whispered against her mouth, You're still my little dove. She smiled small, real, the first true one in days. And you're still an idiot for leaving. He laughed quietly, the sound vibrating through her. They kissed again, slower this time, sweeter. Later, when the fire was only embers and the house was completely silent, he carried her upstairs. Not to separate beds. Not tonight. He laid her down gently, climbed in beside her, pulled her into his arms. She curled against him, leg draped over his, hand resting over his heart. Tomorrow we fight, she murmured into his neck. Tomorrow we fight, he agreed. But tonight we remember why. She smiled against his skin, and for the first time in 7 years neither of them dreamed alone. But in the small hours, when the house was deepest asleep, Luca's phone vibrated once on the nightstand. He reached for it without waking her. A single message from an unknown number, tick-tock. He stared at the screen until it dimmed. Then he set it face down, pulled Elena closer, and pressed a kiss to her temple. They could wait one more night. Tomorrow, the war began. The next morning dawned cold and clear, the kind of winter light that cuts through everything soft. Elena woke to the sound of Luca moving quietly in the bathroom water running, the soft clink of a razor against porcelain. She lay still for a moment, listening, letting the normalcy of it settle over her like a blanket she wasn't sure she deserved. When he emerged, towel around his neck, hair damp, he paused at the foot of the bed. Their eyes met. No words at first, just the weight of last night still hanging between them, the kiss, the promise, the threat waiting like a loaded gun on the nightstand. He sat on the edge of the mattress. You still want to do this? She pushed herself up on her elbows. Yes. Luca nodded once. We leave in 30. Sophia stays with Maria. 2 guards on the house. 4 with us. Elena reached for his hand. I'm not afraid of learning. I'm afraid of what happens after I know. He turned his palm up, laced their fingers. After you know, you decide. Not me, not them. You. She squeezed once. Then let's go. The range was 20 minutes from the estate, tucked behind an abandoned warehouse on the edge of the industrial district. No signs. No name. Just a chain-link fence and a keypad Luca punched in without looking. Inside, the space was clean. Almost clinical concrete floors, soundproof walls, rows of targets at varying distances. The air smelled of gun oil and metal. 2 men waited, both in their 30s, quiet, professional. Luca introduced them as Dario and Nico. They nodded to Elena without smiling, then stepped back to give them space. Luca led her to a table lined with handguns. He picked up a compact black one, first small, matte finish. No flash. Glock 43, he said. Light. Reliable. Easy to conceal. This is what I want you carrying if you ever need to. Elena stared at it. I've never held one. I know. He stepped behind her, voice low near her ear. I'll show you. He placed the gun in her hands empty first. Showed her how to grip it, thumbs forward, high on the back strap. How to stance, feet shoulder width, knees soft. Weight forward. He adjusted her posture with gentle touches at her shoulders, her hips. Clinical. Patient. No lingering. When she was steady, he loaded the magazine. Clicked it home. Racked the slide. Finger off the trigger until you're ready, he said. Always. She nodded. He stepped to her side. Breathe in. Exhale halfway. Then press. She lifted the gun. The target was a simple paper silhouette at 10 yards. Her arms shook just a little. Luca's hand came to her elbow, steadying without taking over. You've got this. She squeezed. The recoil surprised her sharp, but not overwhelming. The shot cracked loud in the enclosed space. The paper fluttered. A small hole appeared high on the right shoulder. Elena lowered the gun slowly, her heart hammered. Luca checked the target through binoculars. First shot. Not bad. She exhaled a shaky laugh. I didn't hit the chest. You hit him. That's what matters. He took the gun from her, cleared it with practiced movements, set it down. Again, slower this time. They spent 2 hours there. He taught her to reload under pressure, fumbling at first, then smoother. How to clear a jam. How to check corners when entering a room. How to read body language, the twitch of a hand near a waistband, the shift of weight that meant someone was about to move. He never once treated her like she was fragile. He treated her like she was capable. By the end, her hands were sore, her shoulders tight, but something else had shifted inside her. Not confidence exactly, resolve. When they stepped outside into the pale sunlight, Dario and Nico trailing at a discreet distance, Luca turned to her. "You okay?" She flexed her fingers. "My hands feel strange." He took one, rubbed his thumb over her palm where the grip had pressed. "They'll toughen up." She looked up at him. "Thank you for not babying me. I wouldn't dare." A faint smile touched his mouth, the first real one she'd seen in days. "You'd kick my ass if I tried." She laughed quiet, surprised at herself. They drove back in silence at first. Then she spoke. "What happens now?" Luca kept his eyes on the road. "I meet with Giovanni tonight. Alone. He thinks he's calling the shots. He's wrong." Elena's stomach tightened. "You're going to kill him if he forces my hand." Luca glanced at her. "I'm going to give him one chance to walk away. Step down, disappear. If he refuses," she nodded slowly, "and if he has backup waiting, then Dario and Nico come in after 5 minutes, and it ends fast." She stared out the window at the passing warehouses. "I don't want you to die. I don't plan to." She turned back to him. "Promise me you'll come home tonight." He reached over, took her hand, brought it to his lips. "I promise." When they got back, Sophia was waiting in the foyer with Maria, holding a drawing of a gun she'd made from crayons bright blue and orange. No trigger guard, no menace. "Daddy, look. It's like the one you have." Luca knelt, took the paper carefully. "It's perfect, Piccolina. But remember, real ones are only for grown-ups who know how to be safe." Sophia nodded solemnly. "Like you and Mama." Elena's heart squeezed. Luca looked up at her over Sophia's head. Something unspoken passed between them, gratitude, fear, love all tangled together. That evening, after Sophia was bathed and read to and tucked in with her favorite stuffed rabbit, Luca dressed in black, simple, unremarkable. No suit, no tie. Just a man who might have to end another man's life before midnight. Elena stood in the doorway of their room while he checked his gun, slid an extra magazine into his pocket. She walked to him, placed both hands on his chest. "Come back," she said. He cupped her face. "I will." Their kiss was slow, deep, desperate, in the quiet way of people who know tomorrow isn't guaranteed. When he pulled back, he rested his forehead against hers. "If anything happens," he whispered, "take Sophia and go. There's a safe house in the mountains, coordinates in the safe behind the painting in the study. Maria knows the code." Elena shook her head. "Nothing's happening. You're coming home." He smiled, small, sad, fierce. "Yes, ma'am." He kissed her once more, quick this time, like a seal on the promise. Then he was gone. The house felt too quiet after the door closed behind him. Elena went to Sophia's room, sat on the floor beside the bed, watched her daughter sleep, the little chest rising and falling, peaceful, innocent. She whispered into the dark, "I won't let anyone take this from us." Hours crawled. She paced, made tea she didn't drink, stared at the clock. At 1:17 a.m., the front door opened. Footsteps slow, deliberate. Elena met him in the hallway. Luca stood there, coat still on, a smear of something dark on his sleeve. Not blood, oil maybe, or ink. His eyes were tired but clear. He looked at her. "It's done," he said quietly. She crossed the distance in 3 steps, threw her arms around him. He held her tight, face buried in her hair. "Giovanni's gone," he murmured. Quietly. "No war. No retaliation. The council's already falling in line." Elena pulled back just enough to see his face. "You're okay?" "I'm okay." He brushed his thumb across her cheek. "We're okay." She kissed him then hard, grateful, alive. They stood in the hallway until the grandfather clock chimed 2. Then he took her hand, led her upstairs. In their room, he stripped off the coat, the shirt, the weight of the night. They climbed into bed without words. She curled against him, leg over his, hand on his heart. He kissed her temple. "Sleep, little dove." She smiled into his skin. "Only if you do too." He chuckled softly, the sound rumbling through her. "I will," and they did. together. For the first time, the future didn't feel like a threat. It felt like something they might actually get to keep. The days after Giovanni's quiet exit felt like the hush after a storm, everything still damp, still unsettled, but the worst of the wind had passed. The house breathed easier. Guards relaxed their postures at the gates. Maria hummed while she cooked. Sophia's laughter rang louder, freer, as if she sensed the shift in the air. Luca changed too, in small, almost imperceptible ways. He came home earlier. He left his phone face down during dinner. He started asking Alina questions not about threats or plans, but about ordinary things. What color she liked best for the guest room curtains. Whether Sophia should start piano lessons. If she wanted to take a weekend away, just the three of them, somewhere quiet with no walls or watchers. Alina answered carefully at first, then more openly. She found herself laughing at his dry humor again. The kind that had once made her double over in the front seat of his old car. She caught herself watching him when he didn't know it, how he knelt to tie Sophia's shoes with the same focus he gave to everything, how his shoulders eased when Sophia climbed into his lap, uninvited. But the past didn't vanish. It lingered in the silences. One afternoon, while Sophia napped, Alina found Luca in the study. He was at the desk, paper spread out, old ledgers, faded photographs, things from before she'd known him. He looked up when she entered, didn't try to hide anything. She walked over, rested her hands on the back of his chair. "What are you looking at?" He pushed a photograph toward her. It was creased, edges worn. Luca at 19, hair longer, smile, unguarded arm around a younger version of himself, the two of them laughing on a pier somewhere sunny. Behind them, the water sparkled. "My brother," he said quietly. "Matteo. He died 2 years before I left you." Alina's breath caught. She'd known he had a brother who'd passed, but Luca had never spoken the name aloud in all the years they'd been together before. He was 23, Luca continued. Car accident. Or that's what they told the papers. Truth is, it was a hit. Rival family. They wanted to weaken my father. They succeeded. He traced the edge of the photo with his thumb. After that, everything changed. My father pulled me in deeper. Said the only way to survive was to become harder than the people who wanted us gone. I thought, if I stayed away from you, if I kept you separate from this, you'd be safe. Matteo didn't get that choice. Alina slid into the chair beside him. She took the photo gently, studied the boy who looked so much like the man in front of her now, same eyes, same stubborn jaw. "I wish you'd told me," she said. "I was ashamed." He met her gaze. "Ashamed I couldn't protect him. Ashamed I couldn't protect you from what it turned me into." She set the photo down. "You're not that boy anymore, and I'm not the girl who waited by the phone." He gave a small, rueful smile. "No. You're stronger than both of us put together." She reached for his hand. "We both lost time. But we have now." Luca turned his chair toward her fully. "I want more than now. I want forever. The kind I promised you once and failed to deliver." Alina's heart thudded unevenly. "Then don't fail this time." He stood, pulled her up with him. His hands framed her face, gentle but sure. "I won't." Their kiss was slow, searching, not desperate like before. This one felt like coming home after a long war. His arms wrapped around her waist, hers slid around his neck. When they parted, he rested his forehead against hers. "Marry me again," he whispered. "Properly. Not because we had to, because we want to." Alina pulled back just enough to see his eyes. "We're already married. Paper and a priest in a hurry." He brushed his thumb along her lower lip. "I want vows we mean. I want Sophia there in a dress she picks herself. I want flowers, music. I want you walking toward me knowing exactly what you're choosing." Tears pricked her eyes, not sad ones, the kind that come when something broken starts mending. "Yes," she said. He exhaled like he'd been holding the breath for years. That evening they told Sophia together. They sat on the rug in her room, surrounded by crayons and stuffed animals. Luca spoke first. "Sweetheart, Mama and I want to have another wedding. A happy one. With cake and dancing. Would you like to be there?" Sophia's eyes went wide. "Can I wear a princess dress?" Alina laughed softly. "You can wear whatever you want." Sophia threw her arms around both of them at once. I love weddings. Luca met Alina's gaze over their daughter's head. Something bright and hopeful flickered there, something that looked a lot like peace. The weeks that followed were a quiet whirlwind. Alina chose a small chapel on the estate grounds, not the same one as before. This time the doors would stay open to sunlight. Flowers arrived in crates, white roses, soft pink peonies. Sophia picked her dress, pale lavender with tiny sparkles she called fairy dust. Luca handled the rest with the same quiet efficiency he brought to everything else. No extravagance, just intention. He even asked Maria to walk Alina down the short aisle, Maria who'd become more family than employee in the months since they'd arrived. The night before the ceremony, Alina couldn't sleep. She slipped out of bed, left Luca breathing evenly, and went to the library. She found the old photograph of him and Matteo still on the desk. She picked it up, carried it to the window. Luca found her there minutes later, barefoot, robe loose around her shoulders. "You okay?" he asked softly. She turned. "I was thinking about your brother, wishing he could see this. See you happy." Luca came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, chin on her shoulder. "He'd like you. He always said I needed someone who'd call me on my bullshit." Alina smiled. Smart man. They stood like that, watching the moon drift behind clouds. "I'm nervous," she admitted. "Me too." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "But it's the good kind." She turned in his arms. "Tomorrow we start over. For real." "Tomorrow," he agreed. The morning was soft golden light filtering through the trees, birds calling from the garden. Sophia bounced in her dress, ribbons flying. Maria fussed over Alina's hair, pinned a single rose behind her ear. When it was time, Alina walked the short path to the chapel doors. Luca waited at the altar, dark suit, no tie, eyes locked on her like she was the only thing in the world. Sophia walked ahead, scattering petals with serious concentration. Maria squeezed Alina's hand once, then stepped aside. Alina moved forward, slow, steady heart, full. Luca's gaze never wavered. When she reached him, he took both her hands. The priest spoke simple words. No Latin this time, just promises. Luca went first. "I, Luca, take you, Alina, not because fate forced us together, but because I choose you. Every day, in the quiet mornings and the hard nights. I promise to protect you not by hiding you away, but by standing beside you, to love our daughter with everything I have. To be the man you believed I could be, even when I forgot." Tears slipped down Alina's cheeks. She didn't wipe them away. "I, Alina, take you, Luca, knowing all the scars, knowing the years we lost. I promise to trust again, not blindly, but bravely. To build a home with you, not walls around us. To let you love us without fear, to love you back fully, fiercely, forever." They exchanged rings, new ones, simple bands etched with a tiny dove on the inside. The priest smiled. "You may kiss your wife." Luca cupped her face gently, thumbs brushing away her tears. Their kiss was soft, lingering, witnessed by sunlight and petals, and a little girl clapping her hands. When they parted, Sophia ran forward, hugging their legs. Luca lifted her between them. The three of them stood there, family whole, chosen. Later, under the tent in the garden, with music playing low and cake smeared on Sophia's nose, Luca pulled Alina close on the dance floor. He swayed with her slowly, arms secure around her waist. "Thank you," he whispered against her hair. "For what?" "For giving me a second chance. For believing I could be more than my mistakes." She tilted her head back to look at him. "Thank you for coming back, for staying." He kissed her forehead. "Always." Sophia tugged at their legs, wanting to dance too. They lifted her between them, spinning slow circles while she giggled. The sun set behind the trees in shades of rose and gold, and for the first time in too many years, the future didn't feel like something to survive. It felt like something to live, Dev. The months after the second wedding settled into something almost ordinary in the way a life rebuilt from ashes can be. Mornings began with Sophia's voice, calling from down the hall, demanding pancakes with extra smiley faces. Luca would already be in the kitchen by then, sleeves rolled, flipping bare, while Maria pretended to supervise, but mostly sipped tea and smiled at the domestic scene she'd never expected to witness in this house. Alina found herself waking slowly, without the old tightness in her chest. She'd lie there sometimes, listening to the muffled sounds of father and daughter downstairs, Luca's low laugh when Sophia smeared flour on his cheek, Sophia's triumphant "I did it" when she managed to crack an egg without shell pieces. Those moments felt stolen, precious, like sunlight breaking through fog. She started working again, not the long hours at the diner she'd once known, but something quieter, a small online business selling handmade candles, scented with things like rain-soaked cedar and fresh linen. Luca had set up a workspace for her in one of the sunlit rooms overlooking the garden. He never asked her to stop. He just made sure the internet was secure, the packages were handled discreetly, and that whenever she needed quiet, the house gave it to her. Luca, for his part, began pulling back from the edges of the empire. He delegated more meetings handled by trusted men, decisions run past a smaller council that no longer included voices like Giovanni. He still carried the weight. Elena saw it in the way his shoulders tensed when his phone rang late at night, but he came to bed every night now. No more sleeping in the study chair. No more staring at the ceiling until dawn. One evening in early spring, they sat on the back terrace after Sophia was asleep. The air smelled of blooming jasmine. Luca had poured them both wine red, full-bodied, the kind they used to share on cheap dates in college. Elena leaned against the railing, bare feet on cool stone. "You're different," she said quietly. He looked up from his glass. "Good different?" "Calmer. Less like you're waiting for the next hit." He set the glass down, came to stand beside her. His arm slipped around her waist, easy, familiar now. "I am waiting, just not the same way." She turned into him. "What way, then?" "For the day Sophia asks why Daddy has scars on his hands, or why some people look at him funny in the street. I'm waiting to explain it without lying, and I'm waiting for the day I can tell her the truth, and she still looks at me like I hung the moon." Elena rested her head on his shoulder. "She already does. I know." His voice was rough. "That's why I'm trying to be worth it." They stood like that until the stars came out sharp, bright, endless. A few weeks later, Sophia turned 6. They kept it small, just family Maria, a handful of Luca's men who'd become almost uncles. A bounce house in the garden that Sophia declared the best thing ever. Elena baked the cake herself, chocolate with vanilla frosting, 6 uneven candles flickering on top. When it was time for gifts, Sophia tore into them with glee. A dollhouse from Maria, a set of glitter pens from one of the guards. Then Luca knelt in front of her with a small velvet box. "Open it, Piccolina." Inside was a delicate silver necklace, a tiny dove pendant, wings spread, a single diamond for an eye. Sophia gasped. "It's like yours and Mama's." Luca fastened it around her neck. "So you always know you're ours, and we're yours." Sophia threw her arms around him. "I love it, Daddy. I love you." Luca held her close, eyes shining. Over her shoulder he looked at Elena, raw gratitude, quiet joy. Elena felt her own eyes burn. She joined them on the grass, wrapping her arms around both. That night, after the last guest left and Sophia was tucked in with her new necklace still on, Elena and Luca sat on the edge of their bed. The house was quiet except for the faint tick of the clock downstairs. Luca reached for her hand. "I've been thinking." She raised an eyebrow. "Dangerous." He smiled, small, real. "About another child." Elena's breath caught. "Not tomorrow," he added quickly. "Not rushing. But someday, if you want, if we're ready." She studied his face, the hope there, tempered by caution. The man who'd once thought family was a liability now dreamed of growing it. "I do want," she said softly, "but only if it's us deciding. Not fate, not threats. Just us." He pulled her into his lap, arms secure around her. "Just us." They kissed slow, deep, full of years and promises kept. Later, tangled in sheets, she traced the faint lines on his chest. "Old scars, old stories." "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Coming back?" "Never." He caught her hand, kissed her palm. "The only regret I have is the years I wasted being afraid to lose you. I won't waste any more." She smiled against his skin. "Good. Because I'm not letting you go." Again, he chuckled low. "Try." She laughed light, free. Outside, the garden rustled in the night wind. Inside, their breathing sensed, slow and even. And for the first time, forever didn't feel like a word too big to hold. It felt like the life they were finally living. The years slipped by like pages in a book Elena never wanted to finish reading. Sophia turned 8 in a blur of school plays and soccer games, her laughter louder, her questions sharper. She had Luca's eyes, and Elena's stubborn streak, the kind that made teachers sigh fondly and opponents on the field back up a step. She wore the dove necklace every day, fingers tracing the tiny wings when she was thinking hard or missing one of them during a long school day. Luca kept his promise. He was home for dinner most nights. He coached Sophia's team on Saturdays, kneeling in the grass to tie cleats and cheer louder than any other parent. He taught her how to throw a punch for self-defense. He always added quickly when Elena raised an eyebrow, how to read people's faces, how to walk into a room like she belonged there. But he also taught her how to bake cookies without burning them, how to fix a bike chain, how to apologize when she was wrong. Elena watched it all with a quiet wonder that never quite faded. She'd catch Luca reading bedtime stories in ridiculous voices, or Sophia dragging him into tea parties with stuffed animals, and feel the old ache in her chest turn warm instead of sharp. She'd built a small but steady following for her candles enough that she hired a part-time assistant and started experimenting with new scents inspired by their life. Garden swing, jasmine and cut grass, midnight promise, cedar and rain, little dove, vanilla and soft linen. One crisp October afternoon, when Sophia was at a friend's house for a sleepover, Luca found Elena in the garden. She was kneeling among the rose bushes she'd planted the year before, pruning dead blooms with careful snips. The sun slanted low, turning her hair to gold. He crouched beside her, hands loose between his knees. "I've been thinking," he said. She glanced sideways at him, lips curving. Again, he smiled, slow, easy, the kind that still made her stomach flip after all this time. "About the future. Ours." Elena set the shears down. "We have one. A good one." "We do." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small envelope, plain white, no seal. "But I want to make it official in a different way." She took it, opened the flap. Inside were 2 plane tickets, first class, to a small island off the coast of Greece. White houses, blue water, no crowds. Dates for next summer. 3 weeks? Vacation? She asked, voice soft. "More than that." He met her eyes. "I want to renew our vows there. Just us. No chapel. No guests. No threats hanging over us. Just you, me, the sea, and whatever words we feel like saying." Elena's fingers tightened on the tickets. "Sophia. She comes too. She can swim in the ocean, build sandcastles, eat too much gelato. But the vows, those are ours." Tears pricked her eyes, happy ones, the kind she'd learned to let fall without shame. "You planned this without telling me." "I wanted it to be a surprise." He brushed a stray curl from her cheek. "I've spent too many years keeping secrets. This one felt right." She leaned forward, kissed him slow, lingering, tasting salt from the single tear that escaped. "Yes," she whispered against his lips. 1,000 times yes. The trip came faster than she expected. Sophia bounced between them on the plane, pointing out clouds, asking a million questions about Greece. Luca answered every one patiently, Elena's hand resting on his thigh the whole flight. The villa was small, whitewashed, perched on a cliff overlooking water so clear it looked like glass. No guards, no phones ringing with emergencies. Just them. They spent days lazy and Golden Sophia building forts on the beach. Luca teaching her to snorkel, Elena reading novels under an umbrella while the two of them splashed and laughed in the shallows. Evenings were quiet dinners on the terrace, wine and grilled fish, and Sophia falling asleep on Luca's lap while the stars came out. On the last night, they waited until Sophia was tucked and breathing deep and even. Then Luca took Elena's hand and led her down the stone path to a private cove. Lanterns glowed along the sand, simple, flickering. A small table held 2 glasses and a bottle of champagne. Waves whispered against the shore. No priest. No witnesses. Just them and the sea. Luca turned to her, took both her hands. "I've said vows to you twice now," he began, voice low and steady. Once out of fear, once out of choice. This time it's out of gratitude. For every day you let me stay. For every night you let me hold you. For raising our daughter when I couldn't. For seeing the man beneath the monster and believing he could come back. Alina's throat tightened. She squeezed his hands. I've said yes to you more times than I can count, she answered. In silence, in anger, in forgiveness. Tonight I say it again loud, clear, forever. I choose you, Luca. The scars, the regrets, the quiet mornings, and the hard nights. I choose the life we built from the broken pieces. I choose us. He reached into his pocket, pulled out 2 new rings, thinner bands, platinum etched with tiny waves and a single dove in flight. He slid one onto her finger, then let her do the same to him. They didn't need a kiss to seal it. They just stood there, foreheads touching, breathing the same salt air. I love you, he whispered. I love you back, she answered. They stayed until the lanterns burned low and the moon hung heavy over the water. When they walked back up the path, hand in hand, Alina glanced at the villa lights glowing soft in the distance. Sophia was asleep inside, safe, loved, home. And for the first time in a lifetime of almosts and maybes, Alina felt the truth settle deep in her bones. They had made it. Not perfectly, not without pain, but together. And that was enough. More than enough. The next morning, Sophia woke them by jumping onto the bed, demanding pancakes and beach time. Luca groaned dramatically, pulled her between them. Alina laughed, wrapped her arms around both. Outside, the sea sparkled under a new sun. Inside, a family woke to another ordinary, extraordinary day. And somewhere in the quiet spaces between heartbeats, the little dove they all carried finally learned to fly free. If this journey from forced vows to chosen love touched you, if Alina and Luca's story reminded you that broken things can mend, that love can outlast fear, that second chances are worth fighting for, please leave a like on this video and subscribe, so I can keep sharing these heart-deep stories with you. Thank you for staying until the very last page. It means more than you know.